Hey guys, sorry I can't be with you today. We're going to start today by looking at the learning card for solving a quadratic using the quadratic formula. Okay. The first thing is it has to be in standard form and it has to be equal to 0. Just like when we solved by factoring and we had to get it equal to 0 and be in standard form, same thing for the quadratic formula. So to get this thing equal to 0, we're going to start by moving this 1 to the other side with subtraction. Okay. When we do this, we do need to be careful and make sure that we recognize this minus 1 is not like terms with either of these, so we cannot combine them. So this is going to be 4x squared plus 3x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so once we've got it equal to 0 and we see that this side is in standard form, what it does is this allows us to clearly figure out what our A, B, and C values are of the quadratic. So that's what we're going to want to do. We're going to identify what A, B, and C are. All right, I'll do that up here. So A, this is the coefficient in front of our x squared term. So it's the 4 here. Our b is our coefficient in front of our x. So notice this is a plus 3, so it's a positive 3. And our c value is the coefficient or the term that does not have any variables on it, which here is a negative 1. Okay. Now that we have what A, B, and C are, all we have to do is plug them right into the quadratic formula. And I like to memorize this, and I memorize it with a song. So if you want to look up what that song is on YouTube, go right ahead. I think there's different versions of it. What this is doing is this is solving for our x's. So this is going to tell us what our x's are equal to. We're going to do the negative and then our b value, plus or minus, and then a big square root. And under that square root, we're going to put b squared minus 4ac, and everything is divided by 2a. The tricky part is when we put this in the calculator, making sure you realize that this is a subtraction sign, not a negative sign. So make sure you know that this is a minus 4ac. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start filling this in. So fill this in with me. Our x is going to be equal to our b value, which is 3, and we're going to negative it. So negative 3 plus or minus, we're going to do our big square root, the square root of, then we're doing our b term. Oops, sorry. I started to write b instead of 3. So this is 3 squared minus 4. Then we're going to put our a term, so times a, which is 4, times c, which is a negative 1. And notice how my square root wasn't quite long enough, so I'm just going to make it a little bit longer. Then all of this is divided by 2 times our a term, which is 4. Now, what you'll notice is this thing has no letters in it. It's all just numbers, which means we can put that right into the calculator. Okay, now the tricky part with putting it into the calculator is that our calculator can't do plus and minus at the same time. So I always like to do the plus first, and then I'll go do the minus. Okay, first let's make a big fraction, so that's the n over d button, and then we're going to type it in exactly like it looks on our paper. So we're going to have negative 3 plus, then to get our square root, remember we do the second and then the x squared button, the square root, and we're going to do parenthesis 3, close parenthesis, square, minus 4, parenthesis 4, close that parenthesis, open a new set of parentheses, put a negative 1, close the parenthesis, and then to get to the denominator, remember you can just arrow down, and we're going to put 2 times 4. If you want to go ahead and just put an 8, that's fine. If you want to just make sure that you're being safe, just type in 2 times 4. And then if we hit enter, it is going to solve for us, and it's going to tell us that that whole thing will become a 1/4. So we can come over here and say, well, one of my answers is 1/4. Okay, if you want to put the decimal, that's fine, 0.25. I like fractions. Now we know we should have another answer because we have the minus as well. So when we use our calculator, what's really cool is our calculator will do copy and paste. If you use the arrow up button and you go to that big long problem you just put in, so it's highlighted, and hit enter, it pastes that problem down here again. So all you have to do is go arrow back through. So you'll notice as you hit that arrow, it's going to move that little black box through your problem until you're to the outside where the plus sign is. Didn't want too far. So see how it's flashing on the plus? To change it to subtraction, you hit the subtraction button over here on the right-hand side. And now we have the subtraction and hit enter, and we get the other answer is -1. Okay, so that tells me my two answers would be a 1/4 and a -1. Okay, now we're going to do it again. Okay, the hardest part of these problems is typing it in the calculator the right way. Okay, so first thing we want to do is make sure that it's in standard form and get it equal to 0. Well, hey, look, this one is already equal to 0 for us. So as long as this side is in standard form, we can go ahead and identify what A, B, and C are. All right, so I'm going to go right here and let's say A is the coefficient in front of your x squared term. That's 2. B is the coefficient in front of your x term. That's -4 because of the minus. And then our C is just our constant here with no variable, 1. All right, so now that we have A, B, and C, we're just going to plug it right into the A, B's, and C's in this little formula. So we have x is equal to, because this is going to solve for our x's, we know we're going to have a really big fraction. All right, the first part up here is negative and then our b value. Well, my b value is a -4. So if we negative a -4, you could either go ahead and put this as a positive, or if you want to be safe, just do it like this when we put it in the calculator. Then we have our plus or minus, and then here we have our really long square root, right? And inside this square root, we have our b value, which is -4, and we're going to square it, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 1. Hope you guys are getting this down. And then in the denominator, it's everything is divided by 2 times our a value, which is a 2. All right, so let's practice typing that in the calculator. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clear what's here so I can start over. Remember, we're going to start with the n over d, and I'm going to type it exactly like it looks on my paper, except do the plus sign, and then we'll go back and do the minus sign. Again, remember that these in the front, these are all negatives. This one right here that's under the square root here, this is a subtraction sign. If you accidentally put this one in as a negative, what it's going to do is it's going to tell you you have an error. Okay, so if you get an error, go back and check and make sure that you didn't accidentally make that mistake. All right, so we get negative parenthesis -4 plus my square root. And then we're going to do parenthesis our -4 squared minus, all the way on the right-hand side, 4 times 2 times 1. And then arrow down to the denominator because it's all going to be divided by 2 times 2. When we hit enter, we're going to get that one of our answers is the square root of 2 plus 2 over 2. So x equals the square root of 2 plus 2. Make sure that that's not, the square root's not going over both of them, over 2. Okay, and then we want to go back to this problem. We're going to arrow up to where we had our big, long quadratic formula. Hit enter so it copies and pastes. And then we're just going to go ahead and scroll through until we're back to that plus sign on the outside. All right, almost there. And there I am. I'm at it now, so I'm going to change it to subtraction. So it's a minus sign. And then hit enter. And notice it's the exact same thing except there's a negative in front of my square root. So instead of writing the whole thing again, you could just go ahead and put a plus or minus in front of here. Or if you wanted to write it out a second time, you could. Either way is just fine. All right, now that we have the learning card filled out, take a couple minutes, cut it and tape it into your learning card folder, and then you guys are going to have a practice worksheet that you have to complete and turn in to me. You'll notice on that worksheet I have a couple of the problems worked out as an example, so follow my examples to get the work done. Have a good day, guys.